an accurate reconstruction, but then two sons of former German commandants visited and explained many aspects of the building. The last commandant was killed by his own troops when he refused to surrender. He's buried out there, Stanislav said, pointing to the rampart. Stanislav's office occupied one of the barrack rooms. He and his family lived in another. There was no running water except for a well beside the broken stump of an old iron standpipe. A modern electric pump had been rigged up. If they needed electricity, Stanislav had to cycle to the nearest filling station with a jerry can to fuel the generator. This had not stopped the electricity and water companies from presenting him with enormous bills. The officials who made out the bills knew perfectly well that we have no mains, water or electricity, he explained. They just expect you to pay a bribe. One day they'll probably take the building and we'll be on the streets. A glass-fronted bookcase stood along one wall of the office. On the other were maps, photographs and charts. A wood-burning stove in the corner was the only source of heat. In the bookcase were a number of smaller artifacts, cartridge cases, a dagger, and an aluminium belt buckle with a swastika surrounded by the words Gott mit uns. As I translated, Sergei fidgeted with the bolt of his submachine gun, while Lydia hissed, "The devil was with them." We emerged onto the gun platform on top of the fort, which was grassed over with trees growing from it. An amphitheatre in the centre, originally a drill square, was now used for musical events. The eerie ambience made it a magnet for bikers, goths, neo-pagans, and dark folk bands. Even shamans from Siberia had performed there. "Do you know Tarkovsky's film Stalker?" Stanislav asked as we were about to leave. Somehow I understood what he was saying before Lydia had time to translate. "This is the zone," he said, gesturing around us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. Hi, Essay. Okay. So I'm going to introduce the next writer now. Thank you very much, Chris. That was great. And you'll find in the chat window that there's links to everybody's books. Everybody's books are available to keep you busy and entertained during this period. So I really would urge you. Everybody here tonight is bringing you their words and their talent free. So please show your love and head off and check out their work. Can't urge you strongly enough. So the next writer that I'm going to introduce is Andrew Leach. He writes novels, short stories, and occasionally, although he's not going to be reading any poetry today, he's had work published in a number of anthologies and collections, most recently in the Mechanics Institute Review issue 16, the climate issue. And he's also highly commended in the 2019 Sean O'Fallon International Short Story Prize, which is a very competitive prize, so it's good. He'll be reading an extract from his story, The Heartbeat of Trees, which is included in a brand new anthology, You Are Not Alone, which is published by Storgy Press in support of a number of homeless charities. And Andrew's got form with putting together and supporting anthologies. I think this might be the third one that you've done, Andrew, is it? Yeah, so without wittering on anymore, I'm going to hand you over to Andrew and off you go.
Thank you, Zelda. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. As Zelda said, this is a short extract from a brand new story called The Heartbeat of Trees. The anthology it's going to be in is called You Are Not Alone. Storgy are the publishers, S-T-O-R-G-Y, storgy.com. Comes out on 28th of May as an ebook and the 1st of July in paperback. This extract features our main character, Bishop. Bishop is an ex-soldier. He's currently living up in the woods in a ruined old house, and it's set sometime in the late 1980s. Down in the town, the people scuttle like they've been hurling rocks at rubber bullets. I smile, nod at a few. They're not having it. Enemy territory. Every door hides a sniper, it's what they used to say. I'm looking out for Frank or Stash. Here, the curbside saplings remind me what riches I have. Bedraggled hanging baskets like drag queens after the party's over. New Tesco, solid, like a church. Stash is in the shelter. Let a convoy of cars pass until there's room enough to dash through. One of the windows kicked out. Pool of glass beads. All right. How's things? She says, not looking up, fiddling with a Rizzler. 2 orange foam discs on an Alice band round her neck. Long wire to a portable cassette player. Tinny faraway music from the foam discs. Yeah, surviving. Got anything? Produce a packet from my hand like a magician, twisting my wrist. Offer half a cheese and pickle. Ta-da! Beauty. Takes a bite, licks the edge of the paper. This vegan? Fuck off. Grins, fair enough. Lights the smoke, takes a drag through the food, passes it. It's mainly tobacco, but there's a little gift in there too. Breathe deep, blow out a thin river. You waiting for a bus or just keeping out the sun? Bus. Where are you going? Station, she says. Then north, with baby. She nods towards a black guitar case propped against the wall of the shelter that for some reason I hadn't clocked. Her blue fringe flops forward like a wave. She tosses her head and the tide retreats. The case wearing stickers. Black flag, Marshall, My Little Pony. Got a gig? Maybe, not sure. Met a bloke from a record label, based in Glasgow or Edinburgh or something. Said he wanted to record me. Takes the smoke between alabaster fingers. Look like they should be pressed together in prayer. Got an address? Shakes her head. Colours shimmy. Phone number? So what's the destination? Glasgow or Edinburgh? Either. Figured I'd get to the station and see where the trains go. You're crazy, Stash. That's why you love me, right? Another bite of sandwich, hands me the smoke. Then what? Well, call the number. I'll be closer than here. A laugh lost in a tote cloud. I can't fault your logic. Wish me luck, Bish. Always. You're my lucky charm. Carry your hopes and dreams, don't I? Well, gotta know someone have some luck. Might as well be you. She smiles. She'd be beautiful in a delicate way, but for that piece of cheese stuck to her front tooth. Realises, licks it off. Police car cruising shark-like. Without warning, turns its sirens on, accelerates. The noise eats me. I hear Stash say, he'll never sell any ice creams going that fast. Then I'm gone. Lost to the boot stomp, shell storm, gunfire, knowing it's just memories. The whine of a landy in reverse. Get back, get back, get back. A soft carved hand on my arm. You okay, Bish? Let the film play out and fade. Yeah. Took you back? Yeah. Falklands? Yeah. Later I lay out in the park for a bit. An hour maybe, no one's keeping time. Somebody's discarded newspaper keeps my nose from burning. Lift my black t-shirt, get some rays on my body. There's kids on the swings. A bee loud as a fighter plane. Grass tickles my ears with a lover's touch. Worry my scars will scare the kids. Stash waved from the bus, arms wrapped around baby. A child cries, pull my shirt down. Saw Frank disappear down Junk Alley. Think it was Frank. Leave him to it if that's where he hangs now. All got to do what we all got to do. I blew her a kiss. Finished the smoke. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Andy.
Yay! Yay! Brilliant, Andy. Well done.
Andrew's on Twitter at @4AndrewJames, and again, I can urge you to go off and check out that anthology because there's some really great stories in it, as well as that one. So that's the end of set one, and we've got a big treat coming up now because the very amazing SA Music, who often plays with Alabama 3, but also has a band, is going to be and she's going to do a couple of. Stuart, you're not meant to mute me. So I'm going to introduce Essay now, who's going to do a couple of songs. Essay, are you ready? Let me just read you in. Naturally soulful, Essay's vocals are never mannered or showy. She's more Nina Simone than Whitney. Her fingers race mercurially around the fretboard, rarely forming a generic rock barre chord, constantly producing flaming curlicues of mesmerizing lead. Essay writes her own music, and I'm pretty sure you're going to be doing some of your own songs for us tonight, aren't you, Essay?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So over to you. Hello.
Hello. Let me just find my things. Okay, so this is a song called Keep On, and the very big vocal in the break, that's not me. So this is the first time I'm doing it without Sheena. I'm doing it as a request from Zelda. It's called Keep On. The clouds have gone away. Blue skies replace the gray. True love has come my way. The sun's gone away. Keep on keeping on. Keep on keeping on. Clouds have gone away. Blue skies will the gray. My eyes are wide open. My soul is in the open. Suns come out today, and she says, keep on keeping on. Keep on keeping on. Keep on keeping on. Keep on keeping on. This one's called Silver Spoon. Sort out the tone. sustenance is no more. I'm eating out of rubbish cans and sleeping on the floor. So tell me where can I start? Friends I had a whole bunch of friendly conversations and shows to cry. Rain is starting to pour, and all I want to know is where I can start. 'Cause I don't care anymore. No, I don't care anymore. No, I don't care anymore. That's my mind gone. How did it go so wrong? That's my mind gone. How did it go so wrong?
Oh, brilliant. Thanks, Jessie.
Hey.
Fantastic.
You can find essay on planetvoodoo. Really go and urge you to check out the rest of her great music. She writes lots of songs herself. So very much appreciated. Thanks so much, Essay. Move on into set 2 now. We've got 3 writers for you in set 2. Ellen Alpston, Stuart Hunter, and Rebecca Dinnerstein Knight. We're going to start with Ellen, who left you up. Hi, Ellen. You've been ready and here. Very, very beautiful. Let me just introduce you so everybody knows about your work. Ellen was born and raised in the Kenyan Highlands before attending l'Institut d'études politiques de Paris, so I presume you're fluent in French. While studying her MSc in PPE, that's not protective equipment, but politics and economics, she won the Grande École short story competition with her novella Meeting Mr. Gandhi and was encouraged to continue writing. Upon graduating, she worked as a producer and presenter for Bloom TV in London, and she contributes to international publications such as Vogue, Standpoint, and Condé Nast Traveller. Serena is her first novel, and in London with her husband and 3 children. So Ellen is about to take you to Russia. So strap down, hold on to your seats, because I think it's going to be a wild ride. To you.
It is indeed. Thank you so much for having me. I'm hugely enjoying this because actually my hood in London was always in the West, and once you have your hood in London, you never really change. My grandmother was born in Königsberg, and short stories I've got the highest respect for. So I'm very, very pleased to be here. Thank you so much. So I'm going to talk to you about my debut, Zarina. I have to show you the cover because it's so beautiful. Teal reflects the Nevas waves, and here we have the imperial crimson of the fur. Zarina is not about Catherine the Great, but about Catherine I of Russia, and it is the first and only novel about this illiterate serf girl who rose to be the first woman ever reigning the world's largest and wealthiest realm in its time. Russia itself changed from a backward nation to the beginnings of a superpower. And I'm going to read you the first pages of Tsarina. In the Winter Palace, 1725. He's dead. My beloved husband, the mighty Tsar of all the Russias, has died, and just in time. Moments before death came for him, Peter called for a quill and paper to be brought in his bedchamber in the Winter Palace. My heart almost stalled. He had not forgotten, but was going to drag me down with him. When he lost consciousness for the last time, and the darkness drew him closer to its heart, the quill slipped from his fingers. Black ink spattered the soiled sheets. Time held its breath. What had the Tsar wanted to settle with the last effort of his tremendous spirit? I knew the answer. The candles in the tall candelabras filled the room with a heavy scent and an unsteady light. Their glow made shadows reel in corners and brought the woven figurines on the Flemish tapestries to life, their coarse faces showing pain and disbelief. Outside the door, the voices of the people who'd stood there all night were drowned out by the February wind rattling furiously at the shutters. Time spread slowly, like oil on water. Peter had pressed himself into our souls like his signet ring in hot wax. It seemed impossible that the world hadn't careened to a halt at his passing. My husband, the greatest will ever to impose itself on Russia, had never been more than our ruler. He had been our fate. He was still mine. The doctors Blumentrost, Paulsen and Horn stood silently around Peter's bed, browbeaten. 5 kopecks worth of medicine could have saved him. Thank God for the quack's lack of good sense. Without looking, I could feel Feofan Prokopovich, the Archbishop of Novgorod, watching me, alongside with Alexander Menshikov. Prokopovich had made the Tsar's will eternal, and Peter had much to thank him for. Menshikov, on the other hand, owed his fortune and influence to Peter. What was it Peter had said when someone tried to blacken Alexander Danilovich's name to him by referring to his murky business dealings? Menshikov is always Menshikov in all that he does. That had put an end to that. Dr. Paulsen had closed the Tsar's eyes and crossed his hands on his breast, but he hadn't removed the scroll, Peter's last will and testament, from his grasp. Those hands, which were always too dainty for the tall, powerful body, had grown still, helpless. Just 2 weeks earlier, he had plunged them into my hair, winding it round his fingers, inhaling the scent of rosewater and sandalwood. My Catherine, he'd said, calling me by the name he himself had given me, and he had smiled at me. You're still a beauty, but what will you look like in a convent, shorn and bald? The cold there will break you, your spirit, even though you're strong as a horse. Do you know that Evdokia still writes to me begging for a second fur, poor thing? What a good job you can't write, he'd said, laughing. It had been 30 years since Evdokia had been banished to the convent. I'd met her once. Her eyes shone with madness. Her shaven head was covered in boils and scabs from the cold and the filth, and her only company was a hunchbacked dwarf to serve her in her cell. Peter had ordered the poor creature have her tongue cut out. So in response to Evdokia's moaning and laments, all she was able to do was babble. He'd been right to believe that seeing Evdokia would fill me with lifelong dread. I knelt at Peter's bedside, and the 3 doctors retreated to the twilight at the edge of the room, like crows driven from a field, the birds Peter had been so terrified of in the last years of his life. The Tsar had called open season on the hapless birds all over his empire. Farmers caught, killed, plucked, and roasted them for reward. None of this helped Peter. Silently, at night, The bird would slip through the padded walls and locked doors of his bedchamber. Its ebony wings blotted the light, and in their cool shadow, the blood on the tarred hands never dried. His fingers were not yet those of a corpse, but soft and still warm for a moment. The fear and anger of those past few months slipped from my heart like a thief in the night. I kissed his hands and breathed in his familiar scent of Tabasco, ink, leather, and the perfume tincture that was blended for his sole use in Grasse. I took the scroll from his hand. It was easy enough to slide it out. Also my blood thickened with fear, and my veins were coated with frost and rime like branches in our Baltic winter. It was important to show everyone that I alone was entitled to do this. I, his wife, and the mother of his children. 12 times I had given birth. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much, Helen. That was great.
Thank you for listening.
Now, and enjoyed that extract. I think her writing's very lyrical and wonderful grasp was left for us. So that was really lovely. Thanks, Helen. Okay, I'm going to mute whoever's got that on in the background. Next writer was born in Aden. His name is Barry Stewart Hunter, and he's the author of 2 novels and 2 short story collections. His 3rd novel is a queer fable set in rural England in 1956, and it's coming out this month. As well as appearing in literary journals, his stories have been collected in anthologies and broadcast on BBC Radio 4, and he lives in North London. He's published by Rhombus Writers, and he is joining us now. Barry, have we got Barry?
Hello.
Yeah, brilliant. So welcome, Barry Stewart Hunter. It's something you once told me, but I just realised we haven't named any of your books in your bio, so you better tell us all about them now, okay?
Thanks very much, Zelda. You're very kind. Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm Barry Stewart Hunter. I'm a novelist, short story writer, and screenwriter. You can probably check out my books if you go to something like Waterstones.com or Amazon. They'll be listed there. But tonight I'm going to read from a new novel, The Swimming of the Deer, which is published by Martin Farrell Company. It's actually my publisher, Martin Farrell Company, next Monday. That's a week today, although it's probably already visible at, for example, Waterstones.com. The novel concerns a schoolboy, Davy, who is growing up in a small rural community in England in the 1950s. It's a haunting rites of passage story and a queer fable with a generous Gothic heart. I know this to be true because that's what it says on the back cover of the proof copy I'm holding. It's actually a novel about identity and destiny, or the idea that identity is destiny. In the short passage I'm going to read, Davy takes a tumble from the vaulting horse in the school gymnasium and momentarily blacks out. He is running towards the horse. Now there is only the horse and Davy. There is nothing and no one else in this cold cathedral, a shrine to enmity and adverse feeling. This horse is his friend, Davy tells himself. No right-thinking horse would forsake him. There is a sloping board immediately in front of the house, a kind of launch pad or platform. Davy takes off here as never before, and disdaining hasty offers of assistance from his classmates on both sides, turns in the air 1.5 times before crashing to the floor at the edge of the mat. The schoolboy can no longer see the school's governors. For a few moments, he can't see anything at all, unless it happens to be located already on the inside of his head. He is running and running in his shorts and vest. He is barefoot in the streets of the village, turning heads, causing cars and bicycles and the butcher's van to swerve alarmingly. Look, there goes Mrs. Lees with her pram of plenty. There stands Betty, brave and loyal friend of Davy's mother. See how she watches him streak past the window of the post office. And there is Mr. Saunders, the bank manager, is there too, waving what looks to be a £5 note like a punter at the Gigi's. Oh, here comes Miss Montgomery marshalling a posse of school governors. They are all present and correct. They are all in on the act, whatever the act might be. It matters not to Davy. He knows exactly what he is doing. He knows exactly where he is going. His overarching mission or ambition is to see a man about a dog. When he reaches Adam Boyd's caravan in the grounds of the Abercrombie Hotel, he bangs on the door with the flat of his hand. No response. Hold on a minute, is it Rachel or Victoria or someone completely different who blows perfectly formed smoke rings at him from behind the net curtain? Not to worry and never to mind. He is on his way again. He is on a hillside. He is on a wooded hillside, legs aching, feet bleeding. Up ahead is a shack, a log cabin of the type used by gamekeepers in films. The door of the cabin stands ajar. It is like an open invitation to Davy, out of puff as he is and observed by phantom rabbits. It is just as he imagined it would be. The whole thing is turning out just the way he expected. This gamekeeper's hut is rough and ready. There is the rough wooden table and the rough wooden chair and the iron bed pushed up against the dirty window, and a rusting paraffin stove. On the table is a selection of dead game, a rabbit, a hare, a brace of red grouse. Although no one is present in the gamekeeper's hut, the stove is lit. Davy can see the warm glow at its belly, and this is the sign he has been looking for all his life. 1 crocodile, 2 crocodile, 3 crocodile. As he backs out of the gamekeeper's hut, Davy begins the count inside his head. Cut to a hillside stream that flows quick and clear around the rocks and the grassy tufts. It looks like Davy is actually in the stream. Yes, he is. He is flat on his back in the icy current, elbows tucked in and eyes closed tightly. And still he counts out the seconds as accurately and as fairly as he possibly can, giving due attention to each one before discarding it in favor of the next, his cracked voice reaching up now to the tops of the trees and the sky. 66 crocodile, 67 crocodile. Davy is still counting when Adam raises him up. The schoolboy stands like a wobbly statue dripping onto the floor of the forest. The gamekeeper has his tweed jacket off. Now he drapes it around the schoolboy's shoulders, which are shaking, and buttons it at the front. I wanted to tell you something, Davy says, but in fact the words won't come out, or they come out wrong, because the youth's teeth are chattering, or doing what teeth do under these atmospheric or emotional conditions. What was it he wanted to tell Adam Boyd? It must have been something very important to come all this way, feet bleeding and without a scarf. Was it something special and true? You're all right now, Davy, Adam says, gathering the boy in. 67 seconds, Adam, a new world record must be. A new world record it is, son. Now let's get you home. He is conscious, awake. He has the sensation of being wet, and there is a rushing sound in his ears. He is lying flat on his back on the floor of the gym, with all the faces looking down on him at close quarters. There is nothing wrong with him. He feels no real pain. Even so, he thinks, this is what it must be like to be dead or dying. You are on the ground. You are lying flat on your back with a circle of shocked faces peering down at you. They are rooting for you, the concerned citizens to whom these anxious faces belong. Why else are they here? Then you hear the siren. It gets louder as it draws nearer. Now it grows fainter. It recedes a bit. That is because it is no longer intended for you. Perhaps it never was. As he lies star-shaped, center of excitable attention now on the gymnasium floor, these and other unhelpful influences assail Davy, undermining his self-esteem and damaging his chances of finding a partner for the scramble. Are those Zibby's features bearing down on him from the ring of leering faces? No doubt she harbors hopes that a certain impending picnic will have to be cancelled now, or at least postponed until the cows come home. But Davy is okay. True, he has felt better, but he is okay. And although he would happily skip the famous picnic himself, when push comes to shove, he has already made up his mind. The event, which is tied up in some mysterious way with the future, or with the whole idea of personal destiny, will go ahead as planned. Some episodes are like forks in the road, aren't they? The meaning of these gateway happenings goes beyond their face value. They must be recognized for what they are and embraced, for good or ill, for better or worse. At least the narcissistic whistle has stopped its shrieking, Davy notes gratefully, bringing his eyelids down hard in a bid to blot out the picture of his life. Even the sound of water in his head is fading now. Credit where credit is due. Thanks very much for listening. Cheers.
Finally, we have
Thank you.
Little cartoon figurines. They're made so precisely, they look like they're being manufactured or something. It's a reminiscent of something I've seen before.
Well, sadly, that will be, we've got only one more writer, but it's a great one. I've put some information about where you can find Barry's books in the message window, so go and have a look at chat, and you'll find links to everything that you've been listening to there. The last writer in this set and of the evening is Rebecca Dinerstein Knight. She's the author of the novel and screenplay The Sunlit Night, and a collection of poems, Lofoten. Non-fiction has appeared in the New York Times, the Paris Review, New Yorker Online, among others. She was born and raised in New York City, but she lives in New Hampshire, and she'll be reading from her new work, which is called Hex. So let me just turn you on. There you are. Are you ready to read now for us, Rebecca?
Yes, thanks, Zelda.
Brilliant. Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us. Really nice to meet you. Let's
Really
kick
nice
off
to meet
then.
you
Off you
too.
go.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Zelda, and thanks everyone for being here tonight. I am calling in from the States, and it's really nice to be able to be with you in Brixton, even though we're obviously meeting this way under the worst of circumstances. It's nice to have a way to come together. So thank you for having me. I'm going to read tonight from Hex, which is my new novel that's out this week from Bloomsbury. They've done a really beautiful job with the book. It's just one of the loveliest covers I've seen in a while. So I want to say thank you to Bloomsbury and to Ella and Allegra who are here tonight. You've been really wonderful, and I appreciate all your hard work on this beautiful book. Hex is a double love triangle, so we've got 6 characters falling in love with each other at the same time, and in the middle of it are some poisonous plants and a scientist who's trying to bind those toxins to their own antidotes. So it's about temptation and attraction and ambition and how all of those things sort of translate into their own kinds of danger, and ultimately their own kinds of intimacy as well. I'm just going to read the very beginning of the book. I am a woman who wakes up hungry. Tom touched only coffee till noon. You do what you're capable of at some point, so Tom and I left each other. I wanted breakfast, he wanted liberty, and who could blame either of us? I live alone now in a large, rancid, blown-out loft in Outer Red Hook, where I pad around the soft wood floors like a toddler. I've taken my pants off, my earrings, rings. It's quiet and bright. I haven't gotten any lamps. I can hardly move. I'm drunk, and I take a probiotic. My name is Nell Barber. I'm 5'5" and 130 pounds, which is not in any way remarkable. My daddy was a nice Jewish boy who married a nice Christian girl and raised me in Kansas and got on with it. Neither of them observed anything ever again. I was born observant. They gave me the original, fearful, organized minds of their childhoods, and no religion of my own to honor. I suppose I turned from the celestial to the dirt. I study plants, and I live in order. Just because Rachel Simons made sustained contact with thallium and absorbed its toxins through her potassium uptake channels and died, the university expelled all 6 members of our lab. They couldn't tolerate another ounce of our hazard. The disciplinary committee stood in choral formation and issued what sounded like whale tones run through a vocoder. Be gone, they groaned. Our experiment in toxicology had taken the life of a valued graduate student and would no longer be institutionally condoned. I wore a hazmat suit to the hearing to promise future caution. The chairman found this disrespectful, and I could hardly see his apoplectic face through the scratched plastic front of my secondhand helmet. Columbia couldn't accuse us. Rachel had oxidized the thallium of her own volition, at her own risk, and to her own demise. But it could close down the environment in which she'd endangered herself and rescind our school-wide welcome. We had broken the contract of care and common responsibility that characterized the Columbia student. If we couldn't study safely, we couldn't study. It made good sense, but it deleted me. The finalized verdict came via a specially assembled summer committee via priority mail to Tom's address, which I'd just kissed goodbye without any tongue. August is supposed to be a lazy month, but it pummeled my partnership and my PhD. The biggest loss is you, my chime, my floorboard. You are my night milk. You are my unison. You believe in the periodic table. Your book sold 8,000 copies in its first week. Columbia will separate you from the Simons case and nurture your celebrity. For 5 years, I've been your smaller self, your near peer, your sane challenger, your favorite. For 5 years, I've trailed you as you approached success. Then Rachel reached for the rat poison and whole thing reached its readers, and my room lost its pillars in one coordinated catastrophe and neatly fell down. You and Tom have both conclusively shaken me. Look, Joan, I'm shaking. Tom and I lived in a rectangle of jewels, his mother's, a small palace they called an apartment on the Upper East Side, a good all-weather walk across Central Park to the university. Each morning I'd emerge from that snow globe and enter the open air feeling forward-moving and weightless. Each morning I'd be a beetle, creeping over the grass blades without bending them, so light was I. Now, when I step onto Van Brunt, my entire body weight rests on the sidewalk, but only and exactly my weight, not lifted, not burdened. I've returned to my skeleton's original fact. If you asked whether I like it, I think I'd tell you I do. When you climb out of something, you're very deep inside. The daylight is first a blank, and then it reveals itself to be life as you knew it before you climbed into that thing. Everything has come around. Against the huge solitude of my schoolwork came the romance of Tom. Against the romance of Tom came our utter lack of sex. Against our non-sexual partnership came our easy, childlike living together. Against our shared life, now, again, huge and unschooled solitude. How undercutting, how generous of the world, to provide each thing with its inverse, to test each version of life we choose with a vision of its opposite. How perverse and unpeaceful. I want more than anything to love the choice I make, love it with abandon, proudly, building a temple upon it. But how can you do it? How can you really give yourself up and praise anything when the world is too balanced to allow for a lopsided devotion, when each thing is always reckoning with its anti-self? Perhaps they're all the same, your various choices, and committing to one is the same as committing to any. Your only job is to build a temple. In memoriam to the temple torn down, to my years of studiously laid bricks kicked over, to a classmate and all her skin, I close the old books and open this one. These savage castor beans and monkshood seeds are no longer the lab's property. Rachel's experiment is now my own. I can destroy it or it can destroy me as I please. I please. As with the old work, the new work is for you, Joan. What isn't for you? More life collected, documented. You'd like that. Wouldn't you like that? That's it. Thanks, guys. It's Hex. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you so much, Becca. Actually chuckled at the house.
Feeling congested? Try Sterimar congestion.
So that's all of the readers for this evening. And I had performers, and I hope everybody agrees they were all brilliant. A really lovely, eclectic, great readers. So thank you very much again to Deserter, CJ Schuler, Andrew Leach, SA Music, Ellen Alpston, Barry Stewart Hunter, and Rebecca Dinnerstein Knight. We've got a couple of questions people have asked about Deserter, so I'm happy to pass back over to them. Was it Martin that asked the question? But just before I do that, I would like to thank a couple of the people behind the scenes who've helped to make this happen. Sheila Urbanowski has been helping to source writers, update the website, get the word out there, and make sure we've got a lovely audience. Stuart's been doing stage management, making sure the audio's fine and the banner's up and everything goes smoothly on the night, managing the waiting room. And Vanessa's been in the background, giving us lots of support, and usually runs the bookstall quite often when we do the live book jams. So thank you so much to all of those people. The children for not watching any videos on the old Netflix, so we've got plenty of connection to be broadcasting to you all this evening. And the baby upstairs for not crying throughout the whole book jam. Well done, Edouard. Thank you very much. Sheila is going to be book jam on Monday, May the 25th. And she's going to be curating all of that. She's got some really amazing writers, including, let me just have a quick look. Naomi Foyle, Confluentials, Jonathan Drury, Sarah Jane Stratford, very well-known Darius James, Ivy Niao, and Layla Woozier. So that's going to be on the 25th of May. Same link, tinyurl.com/bookjam. And I think it's going to be a really great show, so hopefully we can see some of you again there. So thanks again to all of our writers. I'm going to just open the floor to this question from Martin Searle. Question for later for the Deserter boys. Tremendous admirer of the book. Clearly, though, there's much more to the pieces than pubs. They're pretty central to them. I know they're running pieces on Twitter, but how do they see themselves keeping the momentum growing into the new normal? So Andy, and you're already live, and so is Vince. So off you go. What's the answer to the question?
Hi, am I back on?
You are.
Hi, Martin. Nice to see you. Thanks for the question. I recognise your name, I think, from Facebook or somewhere. Yeah, obviously the pubs are pretty vital, but we've started sort of on the website digging back into our past. Vince recently did a piece about his wilderness years in the US, and I wrote about skiving at Cambridge doing a postgrad, so we've got that to dig into. And obviously that's alongside some more public service pieces like how to throw a porch party and grow your own hops in lockdown. So there's plenty of stuff to get on with, including, of course, our podcast, and we're even trying to write a TV pilot very slowly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much longer we've got without pubs. Obviously, it's hard for us. But as soon as something is open and we can go out without endangering anybody other than ourselves, we'll be out there, whether we're having adventures in cemeteries or bus shelters. We'll be having some more fun and writing about it. I don't know, will pubs be sparsely populated at first? I think there is the worry, as soon as they open, everyone's going to want to go to them. It's like school, you know, how they're going to keep them apart, pouring each other.
Yeah. I think I'll stick to the pub gardens for the time being.
Very sensible. Does anyone else have any questions for any of the writers or performers that we've had this evening? Well, Q&A is not essential. Great. So, Ivor, that's you, I think. Ivor, are you going to be doing any more of your live comedy shows? This is a question for Ivor Denby, the brilliant comedian who's joined us. Maybe not.
Someone's got the telly on.
Okay, no.
Worst case scenario is they commit suicide and then cause havoc on the road the road users.
Yeah, so that's all from Brixton now, from the Brixton Book Jam, and I really hope to see you again in a couple of weeks. Thanks again to everybody who's helped, all our writers, and to all the lovely audience to come and enjoy it. Make sure you go and buy some books. Bye.
That's all.
Yeah, and he said, "Leave from the fucking money," and he's fucking cooking like a pig. Yeah, no problem. Obviously, I know that fucking angry on that. What's come back then if you don't want to come back? This is what I'm talking about. Yeah.